Welcome to Pulp Mythos. This is Larry with Brian and Spencer. Today we're going to talk about episode 4 of The Boys.
Correct, we are indeed. We appreciate, the channel's been doing very well, and, we would just like to thank everyone who's subscribed, who's hit the thumbs up, who's left a comment. As you see, we're doing The Boys, we're doing Raised by Wolves, we're doing Lovecraft Country. We got a lot of other shows. We just had a sort of discussion yesterday about some other shows we want to do, which we've not talked to you yet about, Larry, and so we'll be talking about that after this show. A lot of movies coming.
About favors before that or after that?
What favors we'll be talking about, but also a lot of movie reviews coming up in October. We're gonna have some horror themed stuff, so look forward to all that. So this episode started with Well, it didn't start this way, but we're gonna jump to this scene. Homelander arrives at this beautiful looking cabin in the woods, and Madeline Stillwell is there to greet him with the milk and all the things that he enjoys, including a nice copy of Taxi Driver, but not a large TV. I would have had a larger TV, just saying. What did you guys think about that? What did you think it was initially?
I thought it was possibly a hallucination, or I did have the idea that maybe someone's using their powers or something.
I didn't think powers at all.
Yeah, I thought maybe someone had some Professor X style powers, and he was using that for just to simulate her being there. That someone could maybe project an image of her in his mind. I didn't. My mind didn't go to where it went initially. I didn't think it was what's the guy's name? Doppelganger. I didn't think it was Doppelganger.
I figured it was a clone. I didn't figure it.
That's what I was.
I thought that was a possibility too.
I was thinking clone. Like that was my first thought, and then until we got information later, that's what I thought the whole time.
That's what I was thinking, some kind of clone or something. And then, matter of fact, when Doppelganger was changing back, I thought the clone was dissolving. I thought maybe they could only last a certain amount of time. That's where my brain was going, and then I saw, and I was like, oh shit. Okay. Homelander's still dealing with that loss, which obviously he caused. Homelander, this was a big Homelander episode, and he basically became this detective out of nowhere and started really investigating everyone on his team and making major decisions. He's wanting to reevaluation of who he needs, who he doesn't need, and how he's going to run the Seven. And A-Train was the first casualty of all this. He's out. You are fired.
I think we knew that was coming the minute we saw that Homelander saw that he was weak or injured in any way. I think we knew that was coming.
I don't know that he's going to stay out, though, because remember when they were on that talk show, I don't remember the talk show's name, but when they basically said that you're not diverse.
Yes.
And then they were, when he basically outed Maeve, and then he said, when we have A-Train, I think that if A-Train stays, it's basically just to be for Homelander to earn brownie points. I don't think it has anything to do with him actually wanting A-Train to stay, but I think he might. I don't know.
And I'd say he would if it weren't for the fact that we already saw his replacement in this episode. That they've already got someone lined up to replace him, which is the guy that he ran the race against last season.
Isn't that guy Hispanic though?
Yeah, and
so then
that would provide the diversity.
Yeah, they're already going to replace minority with another.
Also, Ash, she stated that a year of celebration. So if A-Train is bowing out, they want it to be he comes out and announces a retirement, and it's a whole thing, and he's probably still affiliated with the team for a short amount of time. So it wouldn't be just a you're gone tomorrow, I think, type situation, because she described it as a year of festivities and everything. So I think it wouldn't it'd be a slow process. So he'd still be around. And like you said, yes, during that interview, he outs Maeve. So he investigated. He realizes, her and I believe Elena were a thing. He tells the world yet again, and he's Homelander's an asshole. He doesn't care about anyone or anything really. He does things he didn't have to do that at all, but he did it because it was a power play, and that's
Yeah, I was going to
how
say,
he
show
operates.
that he's in charge.
Yes.
Well, and on top of that, too, I think when we talked about how Homelander is basically going to be his own undoing because
he's creating enemies.
He's crumbling around himself. He is so worried about his public image. But when he does shit like this, just like us, if we watch an interview or watch something, it's not just watching people. You listen to reactions. You watch how, maybe this candidate, responds to that candidate. It's not just political, it's everything. We watch people's body, what's the word I'm looking for? Body language. There
Body
we go.
language.
But as soon as he outed Maeve, her face and everything else, I think that people are going to start seeing Homelander, whether he wants them to or not, for the asshole that he is.
Well, and that plays pretty well into the campaign that Stormfront is running against him. The fact that he's doing this, because obviously, if this is still her agenda to smear him, then she's going to make it apparent that he outed Maeve and this wasn't anything she was for. That A-Train was forced out. She's going to do everything she can to make him look like the bad guy, and publicly, it's probably not going to play well.
He confronts Starlight in the elevator and basically is going to kill her. He's thinking about it. He's definitely on the verge of doing it, and she's able to sort of talk her way out of being killed. It's an interesting threat and she talks about it later in the episode, that everywhere she goes, she lives in the tower. At any moment, Homelander could just come and kill her, and he would get away with it, and there's nothing she could do. He can look through walls. He has all these powers. You essentially have an angry god watching you constantly, and she has a breakdown after that scene.
Yeah, as long as she's there, he can always see her, hear her. He knows if she's lying based on her heart rate and her vitals and everything. He can just kind of detect that. So she had to tell him something that was semi-true in order to stop him from killing her. And yeah, so she's under constant threat of being murdered by Homelander.
Well, she even mentions that later in the episode too, that, she said she doesn't like going to the tower because being around him is like being around what was a loaded weapon or something like that.
Right.
Where she's in constant fear that it's going to go off. Like she has no idea what's going to happen at any given moment, and she is terrified.
This leads to the road trip. So Mother's Milk and Huey are given instruction to seek out this story about liberty, and they don't really know what this means. They're on a mission. I think they're going to North Carolina or something.
Throw your hands up.
And
take your shirt off.
Starlight wants to go. She wants to get out of the city. She wants to get away from the tower. She wants to get away from the Seven. And Mother's Milk is, or MM, whatever you want to call him, is just like, this is a bad idea. This is horrible. But she ends up going anyways. And it was a delightful
neat little road trip.
You learned a lot about all three characters. They all bonded at different points.
The REM song had me rolling.
There was there was a lot going on. And yeah, you had the musical sequence. You had the story in the diner about Mother's Milk talking about his family, his father, and her talking about her father, and fathers and sugar, and the donut story, the Baskin Robbins story. That was a nice little bonding moment. Her noticing his OCD and being observant of that. The fact that she loves the worst candy imaginable.
That's bullshit. Almond Joy is amazing.
Almond Joys are horrible.
And I know me and Larry disagree on a lot of candies, but that's one we agree on.
Fuck both of y'all.
Not a fan.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, here's the thing about that road trip that they had. I think ultimately, what he said about about her coming along in the beginning is going to prove true. That it was a bad idea, because for one, with the way Vought tracks their heroes, with as much as some of her actions stand out, the fact that she's never been trained to operate the way that they operate. They're very stealthy and secretive about their actions because they have to be, because they're up against superheroes. Whereas she stands out, whereas she technically may leave a paper trail behind. Which you pointed out, the Almond Joy. I would imagine that, given that I hate Almond Joys, you hate Almond Joys, they may not be, and the show in fact pointed out how bad a lot of people think Almond Joys are.
That's
they may
bullshit.
not be.
If
they
you
may not
watch
be.
it, on that.
Well, my point is, Almond Joys are shit. No, but
I watched the second half of the episode on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
The way Prime is set up, they give you like all these IMDb facts, all this stuff, which is really cool. But they said on there that Almond Joy is like 18th in the top 25 candy bars or something. As far as
way.
I'm telling you, as far as how many are sold, I don't.
Well, I suppose so. I could name like 17 candy bars that I would eat before I'd eat an Almond Joy. That is true. I feel like that's one of those things that's going to get them caught. Her going to vending machines, them going to the diner, and probably using her Vought credit card. I mean, who's to say? Why wouldn't they be tracking her finances? So they'll be aware.
Why the hell would she use a credit card to buy a $1 candy bar and a
there are machines that take those. That's true.
Oh, they all do.
But
they all take them now. But
in the diner, however, she absolutely used a credit card. I'm sure. Or maybe she paid cash. But either way, chances are she left some sort of trail that they can follow, that they'll be able to trace back to her at some point.
Yeah, her Almond Joy wrappers.
Yeah. We call it the trail of Almond Joy. But Mr. God, I forgot his name now. Mr. Edgar. Mr. Edgar likely knows that she went. Homelander might not know, but Mr. Edgar probably damn sure knows at this point.
You have, her. It was interesting. It was almost like it was her and Huey hook up. And then at the end, she basically tells him, yeah, this can't really be a thing. It's not safe. So it almost also felt like the trip was her just sort of oddly giving Huey a farewell. You know what I mean?
It was Rumspringa.
It was like, yeah. And Huey he's so blind to everything around him constantly. He wasn't really, because even he's like, why? And she's like, shit, it's dangerous what we're doing. He still doesn't seem to completely understand his situation, and we in the first several episodes of the season, we were digging into his, sort of depression, so he's emotionally a wreck at this point.
And deep down, he may know how bad an idea it is, but he probably, to some degree, he probably needs some sense of normalcy, and his relationship with her kind of provides that. Going on dates, talking about their favorite songs, all that crap. Just the jokes they have between each other. Other than his relationship with her, he doesn't have any of that. So
yeah.
That's probably why, despite being told how dangerous this whole situation is, and understanding how dangerous it is for both of them, he probably held on to it. It's probably the main reason.
The other character who's going through a hell of an emotional arc, and I have my thoughts on where this is going to lead, and I definitely want you guys to chime in on this. Billy Butcher finds out where Becca is. He goes to see her. They have a night of passion, a night of love. They plan an escape, and she rejects she turns against the escape because she's aware Billy doesn't trust or want Ryan around. Now he's logical in his assessment. Ryan is a weapon of mass destruction, and Vought would probably not care if she disappeared. They'd probably be a little okay with it. There's no way in hell they're going to let Ryan disappear and not go after him. So he's right on that front.
She mentioned it. She said, I was going to kill myself in front of him to basically damage him for forever, so that you guys would have a loose cannon. So they only keep her around to basically help keep Ryan in line.
That's it.
So she threatened to kill herself just to fuck with their plan a couple times. So yeah, I don't think that they care if she died and Ryan was okay with it somehow. They'd be like, all right, cool. But
Well,
they're so terrified of this kid that they don't want
well,
that
well,
to be an
well.
issue.
I think, if I'm recalling this correct, I think that was more. She said
That was to Homelander.
that was the Homelander, and that's how Billy survived, is because she said I will kill myself in front of Ryan, and I'll let him know that it was your fault before I do it.
No, but that's what
And
I'm saying.
you'll
So
never have that son you want.
They want to keep
I think
but I don't think that anyone. She used that as a threat against him, but I think that they're probably thinking the same way because they're using her to keep him calm.
Well, yeah, to be motherly and to raise him, and until he's got a grasp on his powers.
well,
But
yeah.
But I think Billy was looking at it like there's him and her escaping. He has a better shot of getting her away. He doesn't have a shot in hell of getting Ryan away
And,
because
and it's clear that Billy has an extreme hatred of
yes.
Anybody with superpowers. Like I think even Kimiko sees that, and that's what the glares between them were, that he would have never accepted having another one. He barely accepts having her on the team. He just barely does it because of Frenchie. Because if she's not there, he loses Frenchie.
Yes, yeah, and so my thoughts are after him realizing he can't have the love of his life. What is in the way between the love of his life? Homelander and Vought. So in my opinion, and let me know what you think, his quest now is to destroy those two very things.
Yeah.
Well, I think that those were already part of his plan, but he felt like Becca got taken from him by those people. So he was wanting to kill and destroy them already anyway.
Yeah.
But then he got a chance to be with her and he was just like, fuck it, I don't care about them anymore. But now once again, they are what's standing in the way of him being happy. So yeah, I think that their targets just got realigned.
Yeah, I think from here on out, he's probably going to go full Punisher, because now he was given that hope that he's like that things could potentially go back to normal, and that he could have his wife back. He found out she wasn't dead, that she's safe, and perhaps they could be together. And he knew, and he had a plan to get her out of there. And now that seems like an impossibility, all he has is his revenge. So he's going to go full on Captain Ahab, and he's probably going to be more, not reckless, but more willing to sacrifice the team and make and cross lines that even he wouldn't have crossed previously than he would have been before.
So he's going to kill a whale, or
He
already did that.
He already did that.
Yeah, that's been done.
I didn't think about that. Do you think that was symbolic in any weird way?
I'm thinking
maybe?
now. Yeah.
Ahab and as well. There you go. So Frenchie decides to kiss Kimiko, and it doesn't go well. And he has a bit of a breakdown as a result, goes back to his old girlfriend, and there's a little moment there. But basically, he has feelings for her, and how that's going to play out, we'll see. But it leads to her. There's a moment where she's going to try and kill Stormfront, and he stops her because he's fears that she'll lose that fight and she'll be killed. And so he has a tiny little storyline that ran through the episode. It was real nice. I was very impressed that the theme of this episode was the relationships, and it carried through everyone's story throughout the whole episode. Everyone had some kind of emotional connection with another person, and even Mother's Milk to the degree of explaining the story about his father. And so everyone had connection with people, and that was a great story about his father being a lawyer and going after Vought and dying, and him continuing it. But going back to Frenchie, what did y'all think about that?
Well, it seemed like the way they were pushing his plot line and Kimiko's plot line, that eventually we were going to get to this scene, and it was hard to tell how that was going to play out. But honestly, yeah, it was a little weird that he would attempt that with someone that he can barely communicate with. That he would that he would kiss her in the first place. You know, especially after what happened to her brother. It seemed like the wrong time for that.
He was super high. I mean, not justifying the move.
He was very, very coked
They went
up.
out of their way to show that he was very intoxicated. Well, I don't know what he was snorting. I don't know if it was pills, coke, or whatever. But
I think that he, just like he said, oh shit, drop something. I think that he felt like he was trying to help her. Now he does have feelings for her. It was obviously the wrong time, but I think that he did feel like he said, he was like, I was just trying to make her feel better. I was trying to help her. And I think he was, because once again, it was awful timing and it was dumb. But I think that in his heart, for whatever reason, Kimiko, he loves her and wants her to be okay. So when she's not okay, when something's going on, even before her brother's stuff, like every time something would happen or if she was upset, he was always trying to help her, make her feel okay. Even with when they captured the brother, he was like, hey, can you teach me how to do the sign language so I can communicate with her? So everything that he is trying to do is for her. That doesn't mean that it's the right move. And clearly he was all kinds of fucked up on all kinds of stuff. But I think that their relationship, I don't know when or where, but I think it's going to play into what happens, because I don't know how strong she is. They show that she's, got super strength and this kind of stuff, but we don't know the full limits of Kimiko's power yet. So for him to be like, she'll kill you, I don't know whether she would or not. Like, I have no idea what her actual powers are yet. We do know Stormfront's a lot of them. So, but I think that she may be the thing that turns the tide in their favor at some point.
It could be, but I think, he was. I think he did something selfish in this instant. I don't think it was so much that. I think, like his friend, who we haven't seen since I believe the beginning of season 1, who he went to, to talk to about it. I think she's right in assessing that. He's like, no, he possibly did a selfish thing he was helping himself more than he was helping her in this instance, that he has those feelings and he hasn't really expressed them yet. And that he went about this a selfish way, maybe, most of the time he's thinking about helping her and he's trying to do that. But, I think he just, he read things wrong.
Well, I think of it this way too. Think of any friend. If either one of you guys even felt like shit or were upset or were anything, it would hurt my feelings also, because seeing you hurt would make me hurt. So I think that it's the same with him, is that he doesn't know how to make her feel better. So by almost trying to make himself feel better, he's trying to help her, but he doesn't know how. Like, he's clearly been in a bunch of fucked up relationships. He's a drug runner, gun runner, like all this stuff. He doesn't know the right way to do anything. So, for him to go that route, yeah, it was selfish. But I think also he was just trying to, like I said, I think that he was legit trying to help her, but he has no fucking clue what he's doing.
Right.
And remember, he of everyone in the group, he is the one that is the most tied to a really dark past as far as crime and things he's involved with. Yeah, you're right about that. It's even brought up, that people have died that that's on him, and he's an emotional mess too. Everyone on the team has emotional baggage, and
well, yeah, that's true. And like his emotional barometer, probably isn't set where everybody else's is. Like you said, he may have been trying to help. That definitely wasn't the way. That's not how. If someone's grieving, that's not how you try to help them.
I don't know. It might help me, depending on what was wrong.
The opening scene, and then throughout the whole episode, there were interviews. Just strange interviews. It was framed differently than the way the episodes are shot. It was just women talking. It sounded about relation or being with someone. I didn't know what was going on. I was gonna get pissed if they didn't tell us by the end of the episode, because I was like, okay, clearly this is all means something, and we do learn. In fact, it was interviews for a wife for the deep. His church is pairing him with a bride, basically, and these interviews were to pick that bride. This storyline is very interesting. I mean, I'm curious where it's going. What were you thinking about the interviews before the revelation of what they were, and where do you think this is going?
I thought at first that it may have been for Homelander, part of him trying to repair his image, that he was interviewing like potential wives or something. I didn't think it was for the deep, and then once that was revealed, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense because he's with this church and they're trying to set a certain image for him because they want him to be their Tom Cruise. So that does make sense. But initially, I thought, okay, this is for Homelander.
I thought it was more of a almost like breeding at first. Like
interview for candidates to take their Compound V.
No, to take Homelander's seed. Like I thought it was because they do have Ryan, but I thought that I initially thought that they were basically trying to build a Homelander army, like him impregnate a bunch of people. Like that was my first thought when they kept showing the videos. I was like, oh shit.
That's a good point, because I didn't even think about the fact that we see with Ryan that there is a pretty good chance that the child of any of these superhumans, that they will inherit their abilities. So that makes sense too.
Yeah, that was my first thought. Prior to finding out what the actual thing that was going on, that's what I was thinking was happening.
One of the greatest scenes in the entire episode was Homelander getting pissed off at memes about him.
Dude, I was dying.
I have to, applaud the production of the show because they had people that had to make all of those, and there were quite a few. And some, they were really funny, and they skimmed through several of them really quickly. But they had who knows who made them, but they had a team that had to do that.
I feel like that scene is going to be turned into a meme in itself. They're going to splice different memes onto the television.
I think you're right.
He'll be disgusted at a different set of memes about something.
It was funny. It's great that he's sitting there. He's getting frustrated. Going back to the whole God complex, this is God looking down on his children and they're mocking him, and that's how he perceived it. And it pissed him off. And he immediately runs to Stormfront. And he's just like, what the hell? This is bullshit. Interesting back and forth between the two characters. I like her whole, basically saying, you have 50 million fans. I have 5 million soldiers. The idea of radicalizing a small minority of people can have a bigger impact than, the vast majority, basically.
Right.
And it was interesting back and forth. There was, a lot of little. She wasn't out. She straight up says, "You're the best of us." So she's not against Homelander necessarily, but she's definitely trying to shape things in her vision, including him.
Well, I have a theory about that her grudge has never been against Homelander himself. It's always been against Vought. It's always been against them. And I'm going to have to dip into a different scene for this. But, back when towards the end of their road trip, who they're going to see, because they're looking to ask about liberty and everything.
I was going to go back to that. But yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it then. We get some serious hints. Well, not hints. They almost outright spell it out that she was Liberty. And so my theory is, if she's that old, if she's been a hero for that long, and if Vought initially had Compound V, then she was likely one of their first heroes. And I guess we'll talk a little later about how far back this may go. She's likely one of their first heroes. And that would also mean that at some point she was discarded as their hero, because they don't know who Liberty is when they're looking her up. Like they're doing research to figure out who she is and when she operated and find someone who knows stuff about her. So my guess is her grudge is with the company.
But I think also when you look at what you just said, Larry, like nobody can find anything about her. She just finished saying that she pays a couple hackers and stuff to basically make all these memes. Who's to say that if she is Liberty, which I'm on the same page as you with that one, I think she is. But who's to say that she didn't erase Liberty? Who's to say that she wasn't the one that was erasing all that shit?
True.
Because it's far enough back, and current age, people don't remember shit past like 5-10 minutes. Like something happens and you forget about it 10 minutes later because something else bigger happened. And I think that all she had to do was erase the memory of her, and nobody even remembers. Everybody's just like, oh yeah.
And there's a key thing she says during that scene, which I'm just now recalling. She mentions to Homelander that all he really needs to do is reinvent himself, and she mentions that she's done it before in the past.
Yep.
So that's another big hint that she's probably Liberty. But one thing I want to point out about this scene as well is what she was doing before he walked in that room. Which is I think very uncharacteristic of Homelander to check for these kind of things. But she was clearly on her phone, and so I have a feeling this whole conversation was recorded and will possibly be used against him and used against Vought, of him talking, just outright being the Homelander that we as the audience know he is, but the public in the show doesn't know that he is, just saying that he's a god and how dare she and all these other things. And because if you notice, while they were talking, she chose her words very carefully. There's next to nothing incriminating that she said.
Well, I think also when you talk about reinventing, if she is older than, maybe the beginnings of Vought, then even Liberty could have been a transformation for her from what she was prior to Liberty. So like this could have been like her 5th or 6th transformation as far as Stormfront is. And we don't know, because as smart as she is, clearly, as much as she uses every ounce of power that she can muster through different means, she's using all of that. And I think that she may have reinvented herself multiple times by this point.
Do either of you think that she's acting independently, or is Vought or someone in Vought in on this?
See, I think I think she's acting independently, but I don't think she will be for long, because Homelander spent this episode pissing off a lot of people, and I feel like in some way, whether she's being honest with him or not, in some sense, she's going to recruit a lot of those people to her cause. Like perhaps A-Train will be working with her.
In the comics, and this is not a huge spoiler, that's why I'm going to say it. We are going to talk comic book spoilers here in a few minutes. But in the comics, the character of Stormfront is not part of the Seven. In fact, that character is part of a team called Payback. Do you think Payback makes an appearance, and do you think A-Train or any of these characters are a part of that team? That was something I was thinking about.
Yes.
While watching this, they're setting the groundwork for a opposition team, and Payback would be perfect for that.
Yeah, and that's what I think is going to happen here. I think we're looking at the genesis of Payback, and I think that maybe she doesn't get maybe she doesn't usurp Homelander here. Maybe he manages to flip things on her and expose her in some way, and she becomes the leader of Payback.
I think that she is putting in motion, not just when she talks about having 5 million soldiers. I don't think that she necessarily just means soups. I think that she's trying to basically get an army of people basically in line and use her pull, because of being part of the Seven right now, to create Payback.
Absolutely.
I also think that what's the dude from Firefly's name in this show? The main head Vought guy now.
Oh, you mean Mr. Edgar?
Yes, I thought that's what it was, but I didn't want to say it wrong and confuse it. But I think that he is going to be kind of the one pulling the strings with Payback. And the only reason I think it's him is because him and Homelander feels like he is Vought. He is the end all be all. And I think that Mr. Edgar is done dealing with him trying to basically be in charge. He, I think, wants to show Homelander that Homelander's not in charge, he is. So if he
Well-
can kind of get Stormfront, if he can get the whole payback crew, like whoever it is, I think that he's going to try and basically end Homelander.
Well, I think given Stormfront's personal agenda and things, it seems like she may butt heads with Mr. Edgar a bit. So I don't think that'll be the case. If anything, he may reluctantly be working with Homelander in order to deal with Stormfront. And because Stormfront, if she's been around for as long as we think she has, if she's the way she works social media, her army of fans and hackers and things that she has, with that network that she's built, with the resources she's had over the years, she's been around potentially longer than Mr. Edgar. So chances are,
No, I think that Mr. Edgar might use her to help what he has, what he wants, whether it's to manipulate her, to kind of convince her that he's on her side or whatever. I think Mr. Edgar's out for Vought. Like he's trying to get money, but I think that he may use her and what she's doing to get rid of Homelander and kind of spin the story, because right now she's making an enemy of Vought. She's making Vought look bad. She's doing all this stuff, but
I get what you're
like
saying. You're saying
said,
like Mr. Edgar might wind up playing her to some degree to get her to sort of just, right.
Get her to get rid of Homelander.
Yeah, that's very possible. He's clearly a character that knows things and is very intelligent and has plans. So yeah, I definitely am curious to see where that's going. That's why I asked earlier about the idea of, is anyone in Vought part of this or not part of this? Because if anyone was, I think he might be, but I'm not really. I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like there's nothing Vought wants to do more than to martyr Homelander, because he's seemingly their most powerful hero and yet their most psychotic is the thing. So, in fact, I think that part of the reason that they do keep his son on that compound in the first place, and that they have that very nice home environment that they provide, and there's tutors and teachers and this whole little community built around them, and basically giving him the lifestyle that Homelander has faked what he presents in the media as being his upbringing. They're doing that because they want his son to be more of a little more akin to a corporate friendly actual Superman, with more of the morals of Clark Kent, because Homelander is dangerous. But if they can raise a Homelander and raise him right, then they feel they can control that he wouldn't be a psychopath, that he wouldn't be a threat to their executives, and it would be better for the company overall.
Because Homelander, we forget. I mean, not in any way excusing who he is, but he was a lab rat, literally. This is someone who came up not in that in a very cold environment, and it's made him what he is. And so I think Vought is very aware of what Homelander is and why he's that way. And you're right. I think they're like, well, shit. Well, clearly, what if we did give him that, happy, childhood? Maybe that would make a better person, because
kind of rewriting the script.
Yeah.
Right.
So Homelander, this scene, Homelander ends up going back to the Doppelganger, and Doppelganger is clearly noticing Homelander is very distressed, very upset. So the Madeline appearance isn't working. So he comes to a conclusion. Okay, what would please Homelander? So his conclusion is Homelander would please Homelander. So he changes into that form and offers to give Homelander a favor, if you will. It's an interesting scene. I wish it had went all the way, to be honest, because it was getting so crazy. I was like, why not? It didn't. Homelander got frustrated. Go ahead.
And it makes sense, because that kind of feeds into his ego for a minute, and there is a moment towards the beginning where his face kind of says, well, go on, where's this going?
And he ends up getting frustrated. I'll say what I think, and then you guys can go from there. At this point, Homelander, he views himself as a god. He's frustrated that everybody's lying around him, everybody's trying to manipulate him, and he thinks Doppelganger is doing that very thing. You're manipulating me with your words, with this appearance. Yes, you're trying to give me something that I'll enjoy, but there is a level of manipulation here. So he kills him, and he basically says, "I don't need anyone."
Right.
Do you guys agree that that's what he was getting from that? And where does he go from here? What kind of Homelander are we going to get in episode 5?
Well, yeah, and
I think
I think
part of it.
well, I was going to say,
Part of
I
it was that. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and keep interrupting you. But
you go ahead then.
You go ahead. You go.
all right. No, I was just thinking that I think that part of it was that he felt like he was being manipulated, but I also think that the big trigger word was the exact same thing that Stormfront just said to him, was that you need everybody's love. And then he was like, I don't need anybody's love. All I need is myself. So then he tried to give him himself, but while he was himself, while Doppelganger was Homelander, he kept saying, I love you the way everybody should love you. And so he kept basically kind of repeating some of the stuff that Stormfront said. So I think in his eyes, he was just like, fuck y'all, I don't need anybody. And he took him out because he was reminding him of that at that time of what Stormfront was saying to him initially. So I think it pissed him off.
Well, yeah, it's a matter of, and it's the version of himself that Doppelganger showed him also. You got to think about this guy's ego, and Doppelganger turning into him and was like, "Oh, I'll make you feel so good. Everybody loves you. I love you. Everybody loves you," and shit. And doing that with his own face and everything. You got to remember, this guy's got the personality of Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. So he's thinking to himself, he's like, "How dare you do that in my image? How dare
you make me do that?"
Yeah, exactly. He's like, "How dare you debase me?"
If you've been listening up to this point, we appreciate it. We're about to go into full spoilers for the comic book. If you do not want to know what occurred in the comics and how that could be, happening in the show,
it's a potential huge spoiler.
It's huge spoilers. So leave now. We appreciate you listening, and we look forward to you listening next week.
But before you leave, though, I'd also like to know, how do you feel about Payday candy bars?
I enjoy them. They're a little too salty.
Well, not y'all, but just our audience.
I know, but I wanted. I get pissed off when all the peanuts start falling off on the floor.
Well, is it Payday or Almond Joys? Is what I meant, right?
Oh, you meant Almond Joys. Okay.
I meant Almond Joys.
Paydays are the ones with all the peanuts.
Yeah, Payday's all right. I actually do like Paydays sometimes. How do you feel about Almond Joys?
The Paydays taste like those Reese's. I don't remember what they're called. Nutrageous.
Well, that's exactly what they're. Very similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you ruined a Reese's, but that's still not bad.
And I think that I learned a lot about you guys today, and this may be the last time I ever speak to either one of you. My feelings are hurt.
Okay, real quick, what is the best candy bar? If you could only eat one candy bar, what would it be?
Oof.
Ice cream Snickers.
Okay. I don't count.
I mean, that's a little bizarre, but
that counts as ice cream.
I would say, does that count as ice cream, or does that count as a candy bar?
Let's just go with a candy. Would it be Snickers if it was an ice cream?
It wouldn't be a Snickers. God,
okay.
Would it be?
But it has to be a candy bar. Something you could get out of a candy vending machine, not an ice cream machine.
I would have to say, as of right now, because it changes a lot of times, it has a peanut butter product in it as my favorite. But those the big Reese's cups with the Reese's Pieces in it, that's my jam right now.
Okay, that's where we agree.
Good. That's a good one. But my number one ever is Baby Ruth.
Oh Jesus! How are you shitting all over Almond Joy, but your
Dude,
favorite one is a Baby Ruth?
those taste
I'm-
zero alike. You are out of your mind if you're comparing the taste of Baby Ruth
Look, yeah,
and
seriously.
Almond Joy.
I've already established that peanut butter is one of my favorite things. I like Baby Ruth, but as far as peanut butter candy bars, that is like the 9th best.
No, the nougat is glorious.
And you were complaining about Payday being salty. Jesus Christ. Like, it tastes like someone dipped their nutsack on the candy bar on a Baby Ruth. It is the saltiest.
Paydays are saltier.
It blends well with the sweetness though. You know, it's a
I don't
it's a
dislike
it's a well balanced candy bar.
If you bite into a Payday, you'll get peanut dust all up your nose because it explodes off. Okay, I have to know before we go on. Okay, what is your top? Name your top 3 besides Reese's, because I need to know now.
Mounds, Almond Joy, and
God. I think we got a serial killer on our hands.
No, that's not true. If you negate like all Reese's,
Yes.
I would say now. Are we negating peanut butter or just
No, just Reese's. Just Reese's.
Okay, because the almond butter Snickers right now,
those are good.
Fucking amazing. Those ones, the hazelnut M&Ms, which
I
are
enjoy those.
they taste like Nutella, and then probably without bullshit, either peanut M&Ms. Peanut butter M&Ms, not peanut M&Ms. Peanut butter M&Ms or Almond Joy. Like, no shit.
Do you prefer Reese's Pieces or peanut butter M&Ms?
See, that's the thing, is that I actually prefer the peanut butter M&Ms because I think that they're a little less sweet. And
I prefer the other, but you're right. They are less sweet. I agree completely with that. I enjoy both of them, but
oh yeah, so do I.
all right. I had to know. Okay. Candy. And we're back with Candy Talk here on. So yeah, we're gonna
have to split this into a separate podcast.
I'm down.
Listen, anyone who's still it's obvious. Our first boys review just didn't do that well. It wasn't getting a lot of views. I don't know if it got any upvotes. No comments. So if anyone's still listening, chime in on your candy thing. Maybe whatever. So yeah, we're gonna go into full spoilers right now. So I'll start with there's 2 parts to it. It's the Black Noir and then Stormfront. So we'll go with the Black Noir real quick. That character is investigating Billy Butcher throughout the episode. Very mysterious character, doesn't speak. You never see his face. Homelander makes a point that he's never seen him. When he's talking about race, he's like, he's no race, because he doesn't really know what he looks like. We know what he looks like if they stick to the comics. So Larry, what is your theory on what Black Noir was doing, and how it relates to the comics?
Are you going to go ahead and say this? Like, I think that Black Noir has a interest in Billy Butcher because, and what he's up to, because what Homelander thinks is that he raped Billy Butcher's wife and that the kid is his son. But in reality, my theory is that this is Black Noir's son, because as anyone who's read the comics knows, Black Noir is a clone of Homelander. And that's why Homelander doesn't seem to remember that incident in season 1. He just kind of makes a face like, that seems like something I would do, but I don't recall it because, Homelander's a monster. So he just kind of rolls with it. But I'm pretty sure.
We talked about him doing detective work earlier, and we had talked about it before we started recording. Homelander doesn't forget shit.
Yeah.
So for him to forget doing something, even though he doesn't see it as awful, but raping somebody and impregnating them, that would be something he would remember. So for him not to remember that does make sense for it to not be him that is the dad, that it is Black Noir. And because Black Noir is a clone, I'm pretty sure he has all the same powers. So for Ryan to have the same powers would also make sense for it to be Black Noir.
Right.
And then on the Stormfront end, in the comics, Stormfront is, like I said, part of the team Payback. Stormfront is a male character, and Stormfront has a very interesting history. Stormfront is just straight up from Nazi Germany, and we get a clip in the one of the first episodes describing the origins of Vought and its ties to Nazi science. Interesting that scene was highlighted, and then we discover in this episode we're almost, like I said, 99% sure that Liberty is in fact Stormfront. Therefore, Stormfront's been around a long time, so it looks as if they're going with that original story, maybe with some differences. But the fact that Stormfront is a direct product of Nazi science, so we're in that BPRD type story. What do y'all think about that?
I think that they are taking that route, but like I alluded to earlier, her saying that sometimes you have to, transform yourself. I think Liberty was a character transformation from whatever Nazi Superman she was prior to that, because my assumption, just by kind of knowing some of the stuff in the comics that I've looked up and then seeing what has happened so far, the whole Vought background, I think that before Vought basically was just like, oh no, I'm not supporting the Nazis, and then came over to the US side, I think that he was working with them and created Stormfront. So then as the tide started to turn in the Allies' favor, I think that he and Stormfront became Americanized, and that's when she became Liberty. But I think prior to that, she was a Nazi, superhero, which is kind of odd to say. But I think that also that would explain more of her racial hatred, because she's programmed. She was brought up and probably created just like Homelander was, but to believe a different structure because of she was made for Nazis. So I think that she was brought up thinking that the Aryan race is the best, like all these awful things that the Nazis believed in. And I think no matter how many transformations she's gone through, they've already shown that she has not changed as far as a person goes. She's just gotten smarter.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge possibility, and that's probably the most likely one. It's also possible that she was with Vought from the beginning during their American years, and she just had, and the founder of their company, just chose her because of her views, that she was always American, but she was chosen, to become Liberty and to get these powers because of either her views or her family's views, because he knew she would be raised a certain way. That Vought was a true believer in that ideology, and that he chose this person for this particular reason. He's still, like you said, going about it in a more secretive way, but he's still kind of pushing that agenda underneath things.
Yeah. I think it's the both of you are on the right, in the right mindset as far as where this story is going. It's clearly going in one of those directions. I originally didn't think they were going to touch on that at all. I thought the character was going to be similar, but the origin was going to be completely different from the comic. Now it looks like it's going to mirror the comic a little closer than I originally thought. We covered all the major storylines in this episode. Do y'all have anything else you want to talk about in regards to episode 4 of season 2 of The Boys?
Well, I will say this much, with the now we can say the whole thing about Black Noir. It makes sense that if Mr. Edgar has no powers, why he's not afraid of Homelander, because at any moment, if Homelander tries anything, Black Noir could rush in there and could handle that situation. If they have a mind-controlled...
How Black Noir is used,
Yeah. If they have a mind-controlled clone of of Homelander, then he has no reason to be afraid of him.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel that and what we mentioned earlier is a big part of with in regards to Liberty is another reason why I don't think that Stormfront would work with Vought. I think she feels that the company's maybe strayed from its original purpose, that, she was with it since its beginning. And if there was a Nazi agenda in there, she's probably mad that that's not what the company's about anymore, that, it's a corporation like any other corporation, that it's about making as much money as possible and upholding a corporate image instead of going with, her particular agenda of what America should be.
Oh,
So it may be like a more of a personal battle for her.
mhm. One final note. I noticed, unless I missed it, that there was no preview for next week. Do you guys prefer, or does it bug you when there's not previews for the next episode? I noticed that with Raised by Wolves and with this episode, unless I missed it and you saw it and I didn't.
I didn't see a preview.
Yeah. So do you like when there's in other words, do you prefer there being no preview, or do you like a preview? Do you think sometimes it gives too much away? What are your thoughts on that?
I genuinely like them, but I'm not butthurt when they don't give us one either. Like, I think it's cool. I kind of gives me an idea of what to look forward to, but I really am not hurt that I don't have one, because even like now we're sitting here speculating what's going to happen anyway. So if they just gave us a preview, it might give my speculation a little bit more direction, but
True.
I like trying to figure shit out anyway, so it doesn't really bother me all that much.
Yeah, same here. And I'm good with not having one, especially if there is a mystery tied to what the series is, unless it's the type of preview that, like, I don't like a preview that gives me answers. I like a preview that creates more questions.
Yeah, I remember when, previews for major shows are pretty common. Game of Thrones, always had a big preview. I remember one of the first major shows that was like, nope, no previews was Twin Peaks, the most recent season. They wouldn't do previews because they didn't want any speculation. They didn't want any reveals. They didn't want anybody. That show went out of its way not to have people really being able to analyze anything. And matter of fact, they were very limited on even trailers, because fans are really good about figuring shit out, even with limited images. So it was something I was thinking about, because I noticed, 2 shows we watched this week didn't have one, and that was sort of abnormal. So yeah, did you ever finish that season, Larry? Twin Peaks?
I still haven't finished the latest season of Twin Peaks. Do you have it on Blu-ray or anything?
I don't. There's an amazing box set they released with everything from the whole series, and I kept meaning to pick it up, but I did not.
I'll have to pick that up. I'm on like the last 3 episodes, I believe.
Oh. So, all right, yeah, look for our other reviews, Raised by Wolves, Lovecraft Country, and Lovecraft Country will be up tomorrow night, and The Boys next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.